Hello guys, morning. Assalamualaikum. Apa khabar sihat kita? Tengah buat benda tu. Kejap lah. Assalamualaikum, selamat pagi semua. Apa khabar sihat kita? Tengah buat benda tu. Hafiz UD97 first. Salah je tapi tak apalah. Kai, apa khabar? Awak ni bangun. Bangun! Pirate of Kepasian, bangun! Cuma apa ni? Mu reply ke aku punya Facebook message tu bagi nombor baru mu. Aku nak tanya muka mu nak tanya sikit. Okey, untuk pengetahuan anda semua hari ni, saya akan live dengan salah seorang keturunan Uyghur daripada East Turkestan. Nama dia Fatimah. So for the length of this live, I will be speaking in English. Obviously, Fatima doesn't understand Malay. I think basically for the whole live, we'll be speaking in English. Baru mau ada KL. Okay, nanti aku mau DM number mu nanti aku tanya mu apart from that, we were speaking completely in English. So Fatima is originally from East Turkestan, and she is from the ethnicity, the Uyghur ethnicity, which are based in East Turkestan, which I did a post on it a couple of months ago about what's going on in Xinjiang with the Chinese government persecuting the Uyghur people in East Turkestan, or in China, as now China call it. And Fatima, under the account I_am_Uyghur, commented on it, and from then I thought I'd like to have her on a live show so we could kind of talk to her and get more of a understanding about what's going on over there. So she was completely born and raised in East Turkestan and migrated to Australia in 2005. And since then, so 17 years, 18 years nearly, has never been able to go back home, completely lost contact with all her family since 2017. So for the last, 6 years, had no contact at all with them, as you know, over there in the Chinese government, Facebook and Instagram and all these things aren't allowed, are banned. So yeah, I mean, it's quite a worrying situation for anybody really. And I just thought I'd like to have Fatima on to speak to her, to find out a little bit more from her basically. So instead of me just just talking about it, why don't we find Fatima and invite to join? Okay, Bagum, terima kasih banyak lah. Nanti aku contact mu lah. Ni, okay. Oh, ada, okay. Okay. We'll see what happens. So for those of you that just joined, we're going to be having a live show today with Fatima, a Uyghur national who was born and raised in East Turkestan and had to migrate to Australia back in 2005. Okay, I think she's here. Hello, morning or afternoon, Fatima.
Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam. How are you?
Sorry, I'm unable to hear you.
You are unable to hear me? Can you hear me? Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you clear. Hello? Assalamualaikum.
Sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you.
Okay. Can you not hear me at all? Okay. Hang on. Does anybody know why I cannot hear Fatima? Hang on a minute.
Yeah, I can't hear anything. I don't know if it's my phone or
I'll hang on. Okay, I think everybody can hear you.
all right. Let me just hang up.
Okay, okay.
Okay. All right. Can you hear me now? Or
Yeah,
I'm
you.
having
Can
issues
you?
hearing you. Would you be able to invite me back to the room, maybe?
Oh, sure.
Yes, please. Thank you. I'll just hang
I'll,
up here.
all right. Okay, alright. Kita cuba lagi sekali, eh. Ini technical issues. But you guys could hear Fatima, right? Yeah, Kaiwal dah dengar dah. Okay, alright. I'll send again. How do I do this? Okay. Invite. Okay, invited. We can try it again lah. Makin sehat mak dan apa. Hello?
So much.
Hi.
Assalamualaikum. My apologies there. I think it was my phone. Yes.
It's okay. It's okay. How are you? Are you okay?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Nice to finally meet you anyway. So I've sort of given, you might have heard it earlier, a little bit in Malay, a little bit in English, just a brief description of who Fatima is lah. But I thought maybe just for the benefit of this live show and for everybody on now, would you just like to give like a brief introduction of who you are and where you're from and so on?
Yeah, no worries at all. So, hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining the live session today. So, my name is Fatma and my nationality is Uyghur. I'm originally from East Turkestan. So, I was born and raised in East Turkestan, and I migrated to Australia with my family in year 2005. So, it's been about 17 years since I've lived in Australia. But the unfortunate thing is I haven't been able to go back, and yes, that's a brief introduction about myself.
Yeah. Okay, maybe just for the benefit of everybody on, can you just explain? Because I mean, not everybody knows, and I think that maybe there's maybe some deeper, darker reasons to why people don't know. But what does it mean, and what is a Uyghur actually? I think that's probably the best way to start off actually.
Yep, no worries at all. So when I say I'm Uyghur, I'm from northwest of China, and Matt, if you look at it, you can't find a country called East Turkestan to start with. So our country was taken over by the Chinese government in year 1949, and they renamed our country as Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. And being Uyghur, to me, being Uyghur means when I was back home, it meant living in fear, not being able to practice my religion, and of course, thinking that I'm less of a person because I am Uyghur. So the people are the nationality, ethnic group that live on the northwest of China, so we are the majority there. However, what the Chinese government claims is that we are the minority living in China. But in actuality, we are the owners of that land. But Chinese government has come and occupied our country. And since then, they have prevented us from practicing our religion. And of course, at schools, we had to learn Chinese language. So we didn't have the freedom to learn our language either. And the thing about living in East Turkestan as Uyghur was not knowing who you are, because back when I was in my country in East Turkestan, I actually didn't know that our country was called East Turkestan, because they don't teach us our language at schools at all. Our history. And after we migrated to Australia with my family, that's when I learned that our country was called East Turkestan, and that we were an independent country before it was taken over. So the sad thing was, when I was back in East Turkestan, of course, I always wondered as to why we had to learn Chinese language at school, why we were not allowed to practice our religion. Because the way that they taught us at schools was, as long as you know Chinese language, you'll have the best life. Religion is a bad thing, and that you shouldn't fast. And because we were so brainwashed to an extent that you can't even question what's happening or whether it's right or wrong, you will think that's the way to live. And then, of course, after we migrated to Australia, which was, of course, by force, not by choice either. Like, we had to come to Australia because due to an uprising that happened in our city, it was basically a massacre that resulted in many people losing their lives, losing their loved ones. And so because of the political situation back home, we had to basically leave everything behind and come and live in Australia. So to
But
me, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
but did you know, growing up, as like a child growing up, did you know that you were a Muslim or not?
I knew I was a Muslim. So you grow up, say, okay, basically what happened back home when I was a child was I grew up knowing that I was Uyghur.
Mhm.
I taught at school, but Chinese language was taught as a second language. But we weren't allowed to wear scarf. We weren't allowed to practice religion. We weren't allowed to talk about religion at school completely. So if say, for example, you mentioned something about praying, people would look at you funny and say, hey, there's government watching over you. So like, you need to stop talking about it, kind of thing. So we were so brainwashed to an extent we thought the religion was a bad thing. That's how I grew up. So and then of course, until we came to Australia, I didn't know Islam properly either. Because the only thing that I knew as a Muslim Uyghur was I was Uyghur and I was Muslim. That was about it.
Mhm. I mean, why do you think the Chinese government is doing this? What do they have to gain from it?
The main reason I would say is it's to basically eradicate the whole Uyghur nation from the face of the earth. Second thing is Turkestan is very rich in terms of oil, natural resources. So if you look up on Google, you find lots of information about how much natural resources are getting exported into China in order to support its population. So you can see that it's not only about just getting rid of people, but it's to benefit from the land itself.
Okay, and why? I mean, why do you think? Why is it that not? I mean, people know about this issue, and I think more in recent years that more and more people do know about it. But that's not due to, I would say, due to mainstream media. That's due to more people actually being aware and finding it on other sites. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that maybe, I mean, if we compare it to, say, the Palestinian and Israeli issue, whereas the whole world knows about that, but not as many people know about the Uyghur and the China issue. So, I mean, why is that? Do you think the Chinese government like doing something to just shut up everyone, or what?
One of the main reasons I would say is the social media. So in our country, social media platforms aren't not used as such, as in like it's not allowed. So the only social media platforms that are used in China that I know of are WeChat and something called Douyin. And Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, none of them are allowed back home. What that means is people are limited in terms of accessing social media to tell the world exactly what's happening, one thing. Second thing, China, to me, I personally think China is great at hiding what they are doing to Uyghur people. And they don't actually let the international media go into our country and report the truth and exactly what's happening. If, say, for example, I mean, like, let's just, go back to what happened like the early January when 14 leaders from Muslim countries went to our country and visited Urumqi, the capital of East Turkestan. And they claimed that whatever China is doing to do something about counterterrorism was the best action. But one thing that they did not realize, maybe, or did not take into account is the fact that they were taken to places that was predetermined and prepared by Chinese government beforehand. They weren't taken to concentration camps. They weren't taken to my grandparents' house, for example, or they weren't taken into someone else's home whose whole, maybe like the whole brothers and sisters were taken to concentration camps. No, so they saw only a speck of a speck of a speck of like of the good things that's happening. And then, of course, they said, oh, yeah, what's happening in China, or like what the Chinese government is doing, you know, is actually a good measure, which, of course, is not the right thing to say.
Yeah. Good. I mean, I've heard, and I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've heard things about sort of tech companies, sort of the CCTV surveillance that is on every house, and curfews and lockdowns. And there was something that came on the other day about a block of flats that burnt down. Is it so? That's all true, or how is that a real curfew, or how does it work?
Yeah, so in terms of the curfews, yes, that is one thing that I heard about and also read on news. And in terms of the fire, of one of the buildings that caught fire in Urumqi, that actually did happen not long ago. So the way that we found out about the complete lockdown in whole East Turkestan was, of course, via Douyin, the Chinese app, and people uploaded photos of their children crying for food, of kids and people dying because of starvation, just because they said, oh, it's a complete lockdown and we don't want people to get COVID. That was the main reason. But people lost their lives, people lost lives of children. And so in terms of the building that caught fire, it happened during COVID lockdown time. And because roads were completely locked, the fire trucks could not access the building itself. As a result, how many people, over 39 people, were injured, of which 11 or more than 11 have died. So thinking about it, if you look at it from the perspective of like how they should be reacting when there's a fire, is not, you don't just say, oh, you know, the roads were completely locked, so we may as well just let them die. No, that's not how things should work. So the way that I found about the fire and of people dying was, of course, through Douyin, but that's about it really. And unfortunately, because we don't have access to, we can't go back to our country, so we can't really give like a verified evidence either. What we rely on is whatever we see on Douyin. That's about it at the moment, because many of us lost contact with our relatives back home. Personally, I haven't been able to reach my grandparents since 2017. So it's been 6 years. We haven't heard anything from them. So we try to call them, but they don't answer our calls. We don't have any social media where we can reach them and say, hey, how are you doing? But
in 6 years, nothing. And so your grandparents are still there, and other family, you still have other family there, or?
So there's no one from my mom's side here in Australia, so it's only us. And then from my dad's side, she has a younger sister here. Everyone else is.
So how do you get out and get to Australia then?
What was that, sorry?
How was it? How did your family manage to get out of East Turkestan and get to Australia?
Yeah. So going back to the massacre that happened in my city. So that happened on the 5th of February 1997. So my dad used to do a business in Kazakhstan. So the city I was born and raised closely borders with Kazakhstan.
Okay.
Yeah. So that time, Dad was in Kazakhstan, but he was not able to go back and then, of course, live in East Turkestan. Because once you leave the country, if you go back, it's like very unsafe. So you'll be persecution, basically. So Dad left for Australia, and then he sought asylum in year 1999. And then he applied for family reunion visa for us, and the Chinese government wouldn't give us our passports for like 6 years. So we finally, yes, I know, it took us almost 7 years to reunite with my dad.
So they hold on to your passport. They
They would not give it to us just because we were Uyghur. And the thing was, because I didn't know our history, I didn't know nothing. I was like, what is going on? I didn't know anything.
Yeah. And how old were you when it was happening?
I was 13. Yeah.
Yeah, you should be running around with friends in school, having fun. You shouldn't have to be dealing with all that rubbish, basically. But I mean, to do what you do on social media and to sort of speak out against the Chinese government, it's not an easy thing to do. It's not a small thing to do, and you're quite brave, very brave actually for doing it. But do you not worry about backlash, or have you had any sort of backlash from speaking out against the Chinese government and what they're doing?
I feel like we've to lose now. We've lost everything. We lost contact with my grandparents, and I know that my uncles are taken to prison or concentration camps. Like really, even if I don't speak up, the Chinese government will continue doing what they are doing anyways. I may as well do it and then become the bad person, because at the end of the day, I know what you mean, because of course I worry almost every day that my family members back home may get affected because of what I'm doing for like speaking up against Chinese government. But if I don't do that, who's going to do it?
Yeah.
We have to be the voiceless people back home. If I just say, oh, you know what, forget it because it may affect them. No. We've got millions.
I think if you were to ask as well your family members back home,
Yeah.
and I think they would want you to do it, even if it was going to affect them, whatever. But you have a platform to do it, and it needs to be said, it needs to be done. I think the more and more people that do things like you do, the more and more people that shine a light on this, the harder it is for the Chinese government to deny it and just to sweep it under the rug, basically. So I mean that's what you do. But what can I do? What can we do? What can the rest of the world do, basically, to help to do something about this issue? What can we do?
Yep. So in terms of there are a few things that of course other people can do. One is to educate themselves about Uyghur people, number one, because unfortunately, when I tell people that I'm Uyghur, many people don't know. Many people say Uyghur, like, who are these people? Definitely, number one, educate yourself. Secondly, raise awareness. We've got social media platforms. And if you know bigger audience, or like, if there's anyone that you know who has access to larger audience, tell them, they talk about Uyghur people, then at least they'll start learning about Uyghur people, of course. And then second thing is, as Muslims, I request all my sisters and brothers to keep us in prayer and just remember us, because our people are suffering and it's not something that's going to finish tomorrow, unfortunately. And also you can talk to your local politicians, and then ask them to inform what's happening in China. And we also have something called that's something that I personally do on like occasions. So we've got Uyghur Human Rights Project. So you can just go online and go on Google and type Uyghur Human Rights Project, and then you can also donate money. And it's tax deductible, so you can donate money, and then of course they use that funding to tell the stories of Uyghur people to the wider world. That's another option.
Well, I mean, I think I like the point you said about going to your local politician, because I think once the government to government starts to get involved, then really that's when things can start to change. When enough countries and enough governments speak out against the Chinese government, then it comes to a point where they can't deny it anymore, and they can't just keep doing what they're doing there. Do you ever think you'll be able to go back home?
That's something I pray for every single day, to be honest. If I had the freedom, I would go back right now, even if it's for like a few weeks, just to of course reunite with my grandparents and my cousins. But it's like, it is very unfortunate and it's sad, but I don't know if it's possible.
Mm.
Very sad, like, but I would love to go back one day. Sooner the better, of course. But even if I don't, if we can't go back right now, my only hope is if we can at least talk to my grandparents, at least if we can talk to their relatives and then talk to them over the phone or like via video chat, even if it's not every day, like once a month, I would be happy. Just so we know they are safe.
Yeah.
But we don't have that option at the moment.
6 years, is it? And
I'm
how old
60.
are your grandparents? How old are they now?
My parents are over 60, both of them.
Yeah, I mean, I can't. I mean, coming from the UK, I can't imagine what that feels like. I mean, I could even know how hard it can be sometimes to be away from your family and not have your family there. But I'm a video call away, every day, so I can't imagine what it would be like not to be able to speak to your closest family for 6 years and just yeah.
Torture. It's a torture. Like you live in a free country, but you feel guilty every day for living in a free land. It's like, really, it came at the cost of like, all these people being like concentration camps. It's not easy.
Yeah, but you shouldn't feel guilty. You shouldn't feel guilty. I mean, I think about if I was in that situation, being who I am now with a wife and two children, nearly three children, and if I was forced into that situation, you do what you do to survive, and you would do whatever you do to look out for and to save basically your loved ones, and obviously that's what your parents did. So you should never feel guilty, and doing what you're doing is one, it's a brave thing to do, to speak out against the Chinese government, and two, it's spreading the message, and the more you keep doing it, and even if you reach one person, 10 people, 5 people, 1 million people, it's going to start making a change, and it can't go on forever. It can't go on forever. But like you said, it's not going to end tomorrow. It's probably not going to end the next month. But there will come a point where it cannot go on forever. Things like this just, they can't go on forever. So, but yeah, I mean, I think you are very brave. You do, actually, even though, yeah, and definitely, you shouldn't feel guilty. Don't feel guilty, really. Don't feel guilty. So, what are some your last words from Fatima? And what are your sort of your last words for this live session? What do you want to say?
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for having me. It was great chatting with you about Uyghur people and the current situation in East Turkestan. And I had a question, actually. So the thing that always bugs me is the fact, of course, the thing is, like, not many countries, especially like the Muslim countries, don't want to say nothing against Chinese government because of personal gain, which is understandable. So what has Malaysian government done so far? Do we know much? And it's like, does it get, like, do you hear much about Uyghur people in like Malaysian media?
No, very very little, to be honest. And I'm not, I'm not so clued up on Malaysian politics and Malaysian government, but in my opinion, not enough. And there's a lot of there's a lot of Chinese projects definitely around in Malaysia, which obviously means that we're in Chinese pocket to a certain extent. All the BRI projects and whatever that are around. So, and it's what I don't know, maybe growing up in the UK and being on that side of defense and sort of maybe whatever's going on with the US and China at the minute, but I definitely see China as a threat, not only to the UK and the US, but to the whole world, basically. And just reading about these things and finding out all these things, I mean, which is why I try and do as much as I can on social media, and which is realistically not enough. Realistically, it's not enough. To try and sort of speak out against them when you find something like the Xinjiang police files and these things that are are there for everybody to see, it's just one Google click away and it's undeniable, then I can't just sit back and say nothing about it. And I find it quite unfair. Not unfair is not. Yeah, it's unfair basically that the and I don't want to come out wrong and sound wrong, but I mentioned it earlier as well with the Palestine-Israel conflict, whereas that is in every single Malaysian's heart, every single Malaysian person's heart. That is very much at the front of, what we as Muslims believe in. And basically what is going on, what is happening in East Turkestan is exactly the same. It's on the same blueprint. It's the same thing. But why do we not know about it? And I think that, I mentioned earlier right in the beginning that there are deeper and darker reasons to why we don't know about it. And you mentioned on it that, the Chinese government, they suppress it. They don't let international media in to look at it. And when they do let them in, it's a very sort of blinkered view of what they're actually showing to people. I'd like to think that if Malaysians, if we knew more about it to the extent that we know about Israel and Palestine, then I'd like to think that we would be doing something more about it. And I will just reinforce the same thing that Fatima said earlier, which is speak to your politicians. So everybody on now, it's not wrong to write a letter or put a tweet out to your local politician or your local whoever around and just ask them like, hey, do you know about this? What are you doing about this? Can we do something about this? Because the more people that make noise on social media and the more people that share it, the harder it is for a government to not do anything about it.
That's right.
Government one, and also Malaysian government one as well. It would be harder for the Malaysian government to keep keep on the side of China if you have all of the people speaking out and saying this is wrong. So that's as Malaysians, that's our responsibility and our game plan basically. My view anyway is to do that, is just make as much noise as we can and make it undeniable for our local politicians, and then that will then go up then to federal and whatever. Make it undeniable. Just make as much noise as possible. That even if you've got 10 or 100 or a million followers on social media, it all makes a difference when you click share. So
so can you hold peaceful protests in Malaysia, or is it something that's banned?
You can, but Malaysians are we are a very sort of not passive aggressive, but we're very sort of a calm and sort of chilled out people. So the whole people protests, we can and they are, but they're not it's not on the same level as maybe you see in other countries. But we have we can hold peaceful protests easily lah. So it could be done. It can be done. You should come to Malaysia. It's not that far from Adelaide.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I would love to go one day because my sister has been there and she said it's beautiful. So that's on my list of countries to visit, inshallah.
I've been here. I'm originally from the UK. I've been here 13 years now, and I came as just on holiday as a backpacker 13 years ago, and basically never left. So that's sort of say how much of a amazing, beautiful country it is.
I would love to go one day. I do know some Malaysian friends that I met when I was studying at uni. So they're beautiful as well. So I would love to go and visit the country.
Yeah, there's a lot of Malaysians in Australia actually studying. That's true.
Yes, that's right. At unis, we see them a lot.
Yeah. But anyway, Fatima, it's been really nice speaking to you, and I'd like to do this again at some point if possible. Hopefully, maybe if you get any updates or if anything comes on, you'd like to share anything. I'd like to do it at some point. It's been really nice talking to you, and I think that one thing that you said earlier, as Muslims, one of the most beneficial, one of the main things that we can do is basically to pray. So I think that I'll speak on behalf of myself and all of Malaysia and everybody watching this, as we are praying for you and for your cause. So I'd like to I'd like to carry out this on if possible lah.
So much for having me. Really appreciate it. And of course, thanks to everyone who's watching it today as well. Thank you.
Okay, take care. I'll speak to you again soon, okay?
Take care. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Salam.
Bye.
So, okay, that's Fatima. So thank you very much to Fatima from East Turkestan. And yalah, I just want to say lah, everybody who's watching this, thank you lah untuk semua yang tengok ni, dan insyaAllah lah kita boleh lah. Isu ni tak ramai tahu sebenarnya. Ramai lah tahu lah, tapi kalau kita banding dengan isu-isu humanitarian lah yang lain, tak ramai sangat tahulah. So apa yang kita boleh buat, kita boleh share je lah. Itu yang dengar apa yang Fatimah cakap tadi dah. Kita share, guna platform yang mana yang kita ada, dan insyaAllah kita boleh bantulah. I tak boleh bayangkan kalau kita nak jumpa keluarga yang terdekat kita dalam masa 6 tahun. Tak boleh jumpa dah sekali, tak boleh jumpa dah satu, tapi no contact, nothing. Yeah. Sedih kan? So okay guys, thank you for watching. Kalau nak membantu, share video ni kau. Okay, bye. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.